All right, it looks like we have a good amount of people with us. So I'm going to go ahead as people are continuing to join us. I'm going to go ahead and get started and just say thank you to everyone that is here. Thank you especially to our speakers today. I'm so excited to have you share your knowledge and your information with all of our members of APA Illinois. So I wanted to let you all know that if you have any questions that we don't get to during our time here, to please feel free to put those in the chat box. Those are going to be things that we can follow up on after we get through a few of the questions that we have already planned, and we definitely want to get to as many as possible. So I know we're going to end this at 1, but if the speakers have a little extra time, we will go past that for any of those that can stay with us and dive a little deeper into some of these topics. So I want to introduce Gisla Augustin from GiGi the Planner. She is coming to us from South Florida, and she has a degree in urban planning and geographic information systems minor, and a master's degree in regional planning. And just fun fact, she got all of those before the age of 21. And I'm also going to welcome in Keith Sbiral. Keith is a planner. He has a degree from University of Iowa, and he recently worked as a planner for a Chicago suburb, but has now switched to the company that he is currently working with, Apochromatik. They are doing work for career development, career transitions, time management, and more. So we have a lot of good information to get from both of these speakers. And so let's just jump right in. I will say my name is Emily Egan. I am the current chair of the APA Illinois Membership Committee, and I helped bring this event to you all today. So thank you so much for joining. I want to start off the conversation by talking a little bit about some of the more traditional things that we hear when we hear about career development. So resumes, interviewing tips, LinkedIn profiles. I want to hear what you two say to your clients when we're talking about some of those more traditional items, and what advice you would give to them when your clients are looking for not only a job, but a job that they are passionate about. How can they use those traditional tools like resume, LinkedIn profile, to stand out in a crowd and to get a position that they're really excited about? I'll let either of you jump in with either of those.
Keisha, why don't you start?
Sure. So a little bit of more background about myself before we move on is that
Please, thank you.
Planner is about trying to increase diversity in the planning field. So that's through workshops for youth, career coaching for planning students and people in the early career, and people just trying to move forward in their career. So that's a little bit about my organization and what I do. I have a big following on Instagram, so please follow me there. So some tips that I give people as it relates to career development and trying to stand out. So for interview tips specifically, everything is very important to learn a few facts about the organization that you're trying to work for. So if you are trying to look for a city, a planning and zoning firm, that you should look, for some information about them, learn about them so you can market yourself well in your interview. And an additional thing is I would suggest that you do a follow-up email right after the interview, because a lot of people don't do that. I think is very good etiquette to do that when you finish your interview. So that same day, preferably, and just a quick thank you for for interviewing me today, and hopefully I can get the job or something along those lines. So as it relates to resume, of course, as you guys know, usually keep it to 1 or 2 pages. That's like a general thing. I do think that for people who don't have a lot of experience, that it may not be as important to keep it so short because you have to use other things to supplement your experience. So keep that in mind. I do think that it is good to use the job description from your previous jobs for information to include on your resume. That's a good way to go about that. And instead of you trying to figure out and remember what you did, just look at the original job posting and use that information. And I think for students specifically, I think it is important to use some of your coursework on your resume that's related to the job specifically. So whatever your job, your resume should be tailored to the job that you're trying to obtain. So if you are trying to get a zoning tech job or a planning tech or a planner one, you should have your resume geared towards that particular position. So keep that in mind. I also think it is very important to include a professional objective at the beginning, 1 or 2 sentences indicating what you're trying to do in your planning career. As it relates to a cover letter, so recently I had some interviews for my organization for interns, and I asked them to provide me a cover letter. And one thing that I noticed in the cover letters was that what they were saying in the cover letter wasn't directly related to the job description. So I think it's very important that when you write a cover letter, to be very specific to the job title, the job description, and all those things, so that you can just state, why you are the best candidate. So, of course, trying to sell yourself in that aspect. And as it relates to LinkedIn profiles, I think that basically, I suggest everybody just to basically dump your resume on your LinkedIn profile. Now, in most cases, the LinkedIn profile may just be 1 or 2 pages, but your resume may be 1 or 2 pages, but your LinkedIn profile can be more expansive than just that. So if there's any other additional information about yourself that you didn't include in your resume, I think that would be great to also include that on your LinkedIn profile.
All right, Emily, you want me to take a crack at that as well?
Yeah, and feel free, if there's anything I missed in terms of your introduction, feel free to add that in.
Oh, sure, thank you. First of all, Emily and APA, thank you for having me today. I'm always happy to take an opportunity to share some career development knowledge with folks and help them along in that crusade that we're all on to have a career that's fulfilling for us. I think when it comes to your career assets, like your resume, your cover letter, your references, LinkedIn, all of these things that we utilize to market ourselves, it's really important to make sure that you tie the real estate that you have on that resume and the words that you put on that page to what you're passionate about and what you're looking for, and match your values to what you want to do. Now, I can use values in 2 different ways. First, the values that you have in what you want to connect to, what you want your purpose to be, what you want your career arc to be. And then secondly, the value you bring to the employer. And I think that's probably the most important thing, where unfortunately we see a lot of times in hiring and in resumes in general, that they're kind of a chronological recitation of what we've done in our career and in our professional life, but it doesn't necessarily tie the value you bring to the position you're applying for. And you want to make sure you're looking at that resume as not only a backward-facing document, but a forward-facing document, and make sure that you put those connections in there so that those people who are doing the first review of that resume, so you can get your foot in the door, can see that value that you're bringing as you move forward. Now, you want to make sure that all of these assets are consistent with one another. You don't want to have something that's conflicting out there either. And I think that's a big picture thing. You know, LinkedIn has been around now for more than 15 years, and a lot of people started LinkedIn profiles a long time ago and haven't done a lot to modernize and update them. And LinkedIn as a platform has added so many different avenues to market yourself and to put forward really good information about what you're doing. And you should take an opportunity to learn those and leverage them and make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, and that there isn't one thing hanging out there that just isn't consistent with who you are and what your career arc is going to be. So I think you know, in career development, and when we talk and work with folks on finding new jobs or transitioning in their career, we do a lot of work before the career assets and a lot of work after the career assets, but making sure that those key documents are in order and are putting all those connections together to get your foot in the door is really critical.
Great, thank you so much. Very good tips, good thoughts there. You know, I want to talk about something that Gisha mentioned in terms of the LinkedIn profiles, that it's not just your resume that you're going to dump in there. There's a lot more. I feel like that is maybe a space that gives more opportunity to show who you are, a little bit more of your personality than a resume. And that just leads me to the next question about volunteering and activities and hobbies. I know that you are very active in your community, Gisha, in regards to tutoring, math tutoring, and being involved, playing piano, things like that. And Keith, I know you're avid traveler and photographer. Can you two talk a little bit about how either volunteering or being active in a social organization, that, you know, it might seem counterintuitive, but it's something that can really help us in our career trajectories?
Yeah, for sure. You know, you can't overestimate the value that having a well-rounded balance. We sometimes, with our clients, we call it kind of whole life synchronization. So we make sure that you have all of those aspects of things that really bring value to your life, and you participate in them. Endless number of clients that have received information or connections or tips on new positions or new jobs through avocational type endeavors. So for sure, if you have a hobby, if you have things that you're involved in, it isn't only for your sanity and for the fact that you don't have to be at work when you're doing it. It's also for making connections and making all of those type of those connections that will get you more information out there, get you more connection to job possibilities, get you more connection to things that you enjoy, and just generally making you a more well-rounded person. And the experiences that you gain from those activities are also experiences you can draw from when you're interviewing and when you're working in your regular career.
So it's raining out here, so sorry for the background noise and the possible thunder. But so for me, I've been very active basically all my life. I'm on the planning and zoning board for the city that I live in. I also was on the education board and was a part of the youth council. And then, as you mentioned, I do math tutoring. I play the piano. I'm a classical pianist, and a lot of those things, especially the ones more so with me directly with the city on those boards, it just gives me more information just to provide on my resume, saying that I'm involved in my community. The planning and the zoning board specifically, that board, of course, is just, you know, a resume booster for me specifically. And I am able to, you know, just use my knowledge and help in that arena. And I think, honestly, for me, they elected me as the chair. I'm the youngest, probably by like 20 or 30 years from the rest of the people. But none of them actually have any direct planning experience. So I do know that I am a strong candidate in the role. But as it relates to everything else that I'm doing, I think it just helps me overall with my overall career, because planning is a very broad field. Education is a very important aspect of planning. The youth, getting involved with the youth and trying to help encourage the youth to do better, and pursue degrees and those things of that nature. All that's very important as relates to just building up our communities, because it doesn't just actually mean doing the actual planning and zoning work in the office. A lot of it is also outside of the office as well.
Awesome, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about this term executive presence. And Keith, I know you talk about this phrase specifically in some of your courses or work that you do with your clients. And Gisla, I know that you speak to this concept a lot in terms of encouraging your clients to show up authentically and passionately. So I'm wondering if both of you can sort of talk about what that phrase means to you and how that phrase might be different for people with different life experiences or different stages in their career. Is that going to be different for someone who's just starting off or not? So either one of you want to take the first stab at that question?
Gisla, you want to start?
Sure. So for me personally, and I think especially for people of color specifically, I think executive presence is very, very important, because a lot of times we have to do more than our counterparts in order to get a job, to land a job, and to keep that job. So I think it's very important for us to do whatever it takes, go the extra mile in our professional careers to help us, maintain our careers and maintain just being able to get the job in the first place. So I think that's extremely important. As it relates to the authenticity, that's always important in any role and aspect of your life, to be authentic, to show up for yourself, be vocal about your concerns and those types of things. So I think it is very important, especially like I said, for people of color, to have an executive presence, present, sort of leadership in your roles and in your positions. So I think it's very important.
Yeah,
Great,
I agree. I think that what we call executive presence, and when we teach it, we say enhanced executive presence, is really critical at any stage in your career. Certainly, when you're fresh out of school, it's important to start to develop your authentic style. Then you move into your mid-career, where in all likelihood you're seeking promotions, seeking new positions, and it plays a critical role in your ability to communicate and lead. And so often as planners and really in any profession, the people who move forward in their career have those two key abilities to lead and communicate. And your executive presence ties those together. So you want to, it's kind of like networking. You want to make sure that you are authentic in what you're doing. You don't want to, kind of hand out business cards left and right and pretend like you're, a 1970s used car salesman. But you want to make sure that what you're putting forward is your genuine brand and your personal brand. So a lot of times we work with clients on defining what that personal brand is and how you can implement that in the best way and bring it forward every day. So that's where we start with executive presence. But I think it goes even beyond that in making sure that you develop a truly authentic self-regard. So often with folks who have maybe a challenge coming forward with strong executive presence and having that ability to lead and communicate, it really is a confidence issue. So a lot of the work we do has to do with unpacking that notion of imposter syndrome and peeling the layers back and figuring out why you maybe don't have the best confidence that you can, and really understanding what value you bring to the organization and what you've developed as your kind of career trajectory and what you're bringing to even a new position. So one of the critical components of essentially creating a stronger executive presence really is making sure that you have done the self-reflection and the work to know what is your authentic presence and why it is, and what it is that you bring to a situation. So I think executive presence really critical, particularly now when the economy's in a tough position. You want to be seen as a person who can lead and communicate well, and really, you know, communication is so often what planning is about.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like that you bring up concerns about confidence and imposter syndrome, because I know that's such an easy trap for folks to fall into. Anything that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I think when you're the first things we deal with executive presence, and I know we'll get to this later, but we have a course that we take people through to kind of develop how they're thinking of executive presence so that they can be more authentic versions of themselves when they show up in the work environment. But the first steps we take are to delve into and figure out if there are issues with confidence, and then utilize tools to try to build that confidence and realize all of the things that you've done, that you've achieved. So too often, I think we go through our career and we don't mark the milestones of achievements that we do have. We don't mark the milestones of experiences we have. And we dwell oftentimes on the failures that we have. And it really should be the other way around. We should be marking and understanding and embracing the things that we've succeeded at, and simply learning from those things that we failed at. Mm-hmm. You know, we've all failed at one point or another in our lives, and to learn from that and build upon it is really the mark of positive, you know, career building work. So I think that to that end, you definitely want to focus on spending the time to really embrace your career and what you've done and what you've accomplished. Now, I think as you transition from that, then you have to look at kind of situational awareness. So one of the things that we teach in executive presence is to make sure that you make a determination before you go into an interaction as to what you want to accomplish and what you want to show up, or how you want to show up. And so it could be any interaction. It could be an interaction with a police officer if you get pulled over for speeding. It could be an interaction with a family member, or it could be an interaction with in front of a board of zoning board of appeals, or a planning commission, or a city council. Before you go into that, determine what you want to get out of that experience and what you want to accomplish. And creating that situational intention really helps you to, you know, have that eventuality happen. And so that's one of the things we teach, and you need to get to the point where you can kind of do that on the fly, because it only takes a few seconds to think about how you want an interaction to shake out, and you know, put your best foot forward to make it happen the way you want.
Good. To me, it sounds like a little bit of mindfulness and self-awareness, and also just constantly reminding yourself of the things that are positive, and encouraging the confidence that is so easy to get lost. Gisla, did you have any thoughts on that, or do you have any tools that you use when working with your clients on some of those issues like confidence or imposter syndrome? anything to add that has worked with some of your clients?
I mean, honestly, I dealt with that myself. I think a lot of it has, being a person of color, being Black, being really, really young. I started in the country when I was 18, so that is really has been a unique experience for me. So I've dealt with a lot of that myself, and I can't say that I have mastered that 100%. So I'm still, have little things, but it's all about battling your mind. Honestly, that's really the main thing. Knowing, especially once you have gained some experience. I know at the very beginning that may be a little bit tricky trying to, battle that, but once you gain some experience, just knowing that you are able to do that work, and just standing up for yourself, honestly, I would say, when it comes to your coworkers, when it comes to people on the outside. I've had other people on the outside question me being, in the office, me being in the position that I was in, being asked to get somebody, older, getting a male to come speak to them. I've been, asked all the different types of things, but just standing up for yourself and knowing that, no, I put my work in, I got my degree, so I am qualified to be here, and just, standing up for yourself and being aware of everything that's going on around you.
So good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's always a good reminder, even, we all struggle with that, even no matter how many Instagram followers you have, it's still challenging to remember, but thanks so much. Do either of you have any tips that folks that are watching today, and just a reminder, if anyone has any questions that we want to get to, feel free to throw those into the chat and we'll get to those as soon as we can. But I'm wondering if either of you have tips that people watching today could leave this webinar and be able to implement them today, just in terms of encouraging their own executive presence to come forward and to look at some of those challenges like imposter syndrome or confidence even. Is there anything actionable that you think you would be able to recommend today for some of the people watching?
Go ahead.
What I would say is a lot of the reason why we have this imposter syndrome and lack confidence is because we don't have all the knowledge that we need. So I think one thing that people can take away from this webinar is the fact that just gain more knowledge in the planning field, whether that means learning more in your job specifically, learning more outside of your job, reading more. I think all those are very actionable things that you can do just to help with that whole aspect, because I think that once you have more knowledge, you're able to present yourself more confidently in front of your peers, in front of your colleagues, in front of the people on the outside. So I think it's very important to gain that knowledge in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. Even like you were saying, some of the untraditional ways, still access to a lot of good information that can help build your confidence. Yeah. Keith, did you have something that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, there's one word that can change the entire dynamic of how you think about your confidence and how you approach your professional life in general. And so often we find ourselves saying, I know I have for certain, I don't know how to do that, or I can't speak to that, or I don't have the experience to be able to apply for that next position. And it's basic, but it makes a tremendous difference to move yourself from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And the way you can do that is by adding the word yet. And so we talk a lot about that with our clients and with some of the presentations we give, in saying yet. So I don't know how to do that yet. That completely changes your mindset, and it moves you forward, and it gives you the incentive and the direction and the motivation to figure it out. You have to remember that everyone has felt that way at one point or another. And the numbers of people who have suffered from imposter syndrome are, you know, incredibly high. And the numbers of people, I was just reading an article this last week that said 38% of men and 28% of women are fired at some time in their career. I mean, there are positions that you're in that you are down in the dumps on. But if you use that word yet, you really can turn that around. It works with managing others as well. I mean, you can utilize that tool in many ways. But if you just simply try adding the word yet to the voice in your head that's telling you that you're not good enough, or you don't have the communication and leadership abilities that you want to or desire, you really will shift your mindset, and you'll be on your way to working on that. And it's an increasingly good way to turn around your mind over time. So oftentimes we work with folks on creating kind of their personal presence mantra, or a phrase that they can utilize and repeat to themselves day after day, you know, every morning, and start to really turn their mindset around. And so I think that's something that you can take away from today, and just always think of that word yet.
Great. Thank you so much. That's great. Unless Gisla, you had anything else to add to that, I do have another question, kind of switching topics here. But just the topic that we can't seem to get away from, if either of you want to speak to how your clients or the people that you work with or volunteer with are seeing this new world of COVID-19, how that is changing the world in a very real way in terms of the economy, and any thoughts that you have on, do you work with your clients any differently now that we're in this pandemic, or is it the same tried and true methods and strategies despite the difficult times?
What I can say, for the most part, I keep them the same. But one thing that I do encourage a lot of people to do as it relates to, you know, trying to get a job during these times is not to be so picky at this time, because there are not that many jobs out there available. So if you say that I want to be a transportation planner, but there are no transportation jobs available, you may just need to get a regular planner type job. So I think that it's very important not to be so picky right now. Be flexible, be adaptable. I think that's one of the most important things to be during this time, because you really don't know when things are going to get back to some sort of normalcy. So I think that it's important not to be so picky.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, just to go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, we would have never guessed this in January or February, that we would be sitting here on Zoom in July, and that really about 95% of the people we communicate with would have embraced Zoom and would have embraced the type of communications that we have now. So certainly where it relates to executive presence, there are different things that we've you know, started to teach. Most of our work, frankly, was done remotely anyway, and over technology. But I think being able to provide a solid executive presence over Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype for Business or whatever the case may be is definitely a new challenge. You know, it's correct that jobs are limited, but I also want to encourage people to use this summer to really create your career assets, your resumes, your cover letters, your writing samples, your LinkedIn, and take this time to do that work, and take this time to make sure that you're connecting those with the value you bring to the new organization you might be looking to apply for, because while it is difficult right now, and there is some sense that particularly in the municipal sector, there may be kind of a dark cloud on the horizon as far as what's happening, the confidence level you have and the ability that you have to present yourself in a good way, if you have all of those career assets in order, is exponentially better. So don't sit back and say, bad economy, bad job market, not sure what to do, throw up your hands and give up. Take this opportunity to leverage that. Remember that, you know, everyone's circumstances really, they may be the same. We're all in this COVID-19 pandemic lockdown situation, but the resources we have and the supports we have and the demands of each of those are different. So give yourself grace, and don't fall into comparing yourself with others with their pandemic project pressure. You know, they've redesigned their entire home and decluttered and done all of this stuff. Everyone has their own situation, and particularly if you're out of work or searching for new work, your energies can best be spent right now working on your career assets, I think. You know, one more thing I would add right now is I think protecting and bolstering your mental health has probably never been more important. So you mentioned mindfulness earlier. I think, you know, whatever we can do to carve out some ability to protect and to pay attention to our mental health is critical in this time, to keep our positivity and our confidence moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keisha, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I do think that mental health, you know, we can't have a healthy career or vocation if we don't have mental health as well. So I wanted to, and yes, feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat if you're curious or you have follow-up questions for either of our speakers here. But I wanted to expand a little bit more on the executive presence concept and speak to if you have any experiences working with clients, specifically planners. Obviously, Keisha, I know you're, I believe, mostly or exclusively working with planners. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. For any specifically planners that might be looking for jobs in this economic downturn, how executive presence might be applied for them when they might not be very far along in their career. So say, you know, they're not expected to have executive presence. They're expected to do a lot of tasks and get them done, and may not have opportunities to really shine or to show their leadership. Do either of you have situations like that when working with some of the planners that are just doing a fence permit review or something like that? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I would say, I think, you know, always put your best foot forward in whatever job that you have. Be very professional about how you carry yourself. I think that's also very important. Be on time. Like, these are some minor things, but I think it's very important to, you know, to mention it. Be on time to work. Don't spend a whole lot of time chatting with your coworkers and things like that. But as it relates to like some of the more menial tasks, just put your heart into it. Do the very best that you can. And eventually that will show through your work, and it'll help you get to the next step and get a promotion. So I think it's very important to put your best foot forward, do your very best, don't slack, be attentive, and just shine through your work.
Yeah, I would say just remember that every interaction you have, personally and professionally, reflects upon you as a person and as a professional. And so, you know, when you're at the office, make sure that you act in a professional manner. Make sure that you are able to look at every interaction you have, whether that be with a member of the public or with a member of the board or your direct supervisor, and understand that your ability to communicate in those situations is critically important. And I think one of the things, and I know, Emily, you have a slide for this, or you're going to get to it, but we offer a class we call 30 Days to Enhanced Executive Presence. And that is something that you can do as a brand new graduate, or you can do it if you're, seeking your retirement position, because the reflection in the work you do really builds to creating a better holistic approach to your interaction with your career. So I think taking time to figure out what values you honor most in the work you do and what you're passionate about, authentically how you show up, and then what value you specifically bring to an employer. Figuring all of that stuff out puts you in a very confident position, so that when you hear about a position that popped up for one reason or another, you're almost relaxed about the application. And with respect to the job market and COVID-19 and executive presence, the one thing that I think executive presence is critical to work on, and it is one entire module in our course, is interviewing. So, you're going to end up interviewing at some point, and a lot of people get very nervous. I know I've been in interviews where all kinds of crazy things have happened, and crazy questions have been asked and answered, and you have to be ready for anything. But I think the key is to remember that you are the foremost expert on the subject at hand. They're interviewing you to find out about you. Now, to some extent, you're going to interview them to find out about the position as well, but you shouldn't be uncomfortable talking about your own experiences, and a lot of people are. And so getting rid of that uncomfortable feeling early on is critical.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like I'm hearing both of you kind of touch on these points of no task is too small. Put yourself completely into all of the work and all of the interactions. And so I think that's great advice during any time, a pandemic or not. Thank you so much. So I will bring up the last slide that you mentioned, because I want to make sure that folks get a chance to see both of the websites that you have, because if you haven't yet checked out GiGi the Planner website, do so. Do yourself a favor. Lots of good podcast material, merchandise that I have my eye on, and some stuff, but lots of great resources there. And then, of course, Keith's Apochromatik website is available. But Keith, I know the second link here under your name has a little bit more detail. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to do this just for the planners out there, and I wanted to make sure that you have an opportunity to get some of the content that Apochromatik puts out. If you go to that, I think it might actually, aposignup.com/planning. It's a special page there devoted for today's event, and there's a sign up there. We're going to give away a book bundle. If you go to our regular website, we've got 5 or 6 book bundles that we've put together, and they're focused on specific career-related topics. So whether it be leadership or executive presence, there's topics there that have 2 to 4 books that we think are kind of the leading, most interesting quick reads right now in that area. And we've pre-read them for you so that you know that they're not going to be a waste of time. And if everyone signs up, if whoever signs up by, I think I put on there the 7th or the 6th or something, we'll draw and give away a free book bundle of your choice out of the Apochromatik book bundles. It's always good to keep up on your professional development reading. And on that page as well, there's also information about 30 Days to Enhance Executive Presence. If you're interested in that, you can read all about it there. and we have, you know, that opportunity as well. Certainly don't hesitate to email me at any time. I love to work with folks in the planning profession, especially those who are trying to develop a career and really work on you know, their career trajectory. So it's aposignup.com/planning. We'll draw one July 5th and give away a book bundle. Have it sent to you from probably Amazon.
And did you, Gisha, did you want to share anything in regards to the speakers watching today? I know you constantly are offering services for folks looking to get into planning. Was there anything else that you wanted to add in regards to some of your services or upcoming events or podcasts that you're excited about?
So yeah, I'm doing a lot of things right now, probably too many things. But yeah, so I do have a podcast. It's called the Urban Planners Podcast. I started at the end of March, so I've been going on now for about 2 months. And I do have services, career coaching services. So for if you need any tips or any advice on how to progress in your career, I have services for that. I have resume review, mock-up interviews if you need any help with that. And I also have coaching for people who maybe wanting to start their own business. So I also provide coaching for that as well. And then, as Emily mentioned, I sell products, planning-related products. I saw a deficit for planning slogans on T-shirts and hats and hoodies and stuff. So I decided to, bring out some products. A lot of it is just to educate the outsiders about what the field of planning actually is. So basically a planner will wear it and there, maybe it could spark some conversation or something to those that see you wear the products. So I do sell those as well.
I love it. How many times have we been asked, are we party planners? And so now there's a mug that has that conversation for you. I'm not a party planner. I'm an urban planner. I plan cities. I love it. Thank you so much. I did get one question in the chat here. Also, I did want to just mention that the last slide did show the APA Illinois State Conference in Rosemont. I'm sure you all got the emails by now. It will be virtual. So just a clarification on that. And if we have a little bit more time here, we do have one question in the chat here. Is it appropriate for follow-up when with an interview to ask why you did not get a job? If you have some thoughts on that question.
I would think that it is appropriate. I think, of course, you need to word the email correctly. But I think it is appropriate. You can maybe get some pointers on what you may need to do better for a future interview. But I think it's fine, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a professional request is a great way to follow up and learn a way to improve. And so I would try to follow up specifically with someone who's in your field or in the profession. So if you have an interview with maybe the director and the senior planner and an HR representative, I might follow up with the director or the senior planner just to get a sense of, from their professional view, where it came from.
Thank you so much. Great question. That is certainly something that the odds are all of us will experience. So good to have that information.
I think it's important too to make sure that you understand that, no doesn't necessarily mean no forever. It means no right now. And so you may not get that position right now, but it may be a position that you can get down the road. So always be open to making sure that, all those bridges are good.
Okay, great. Just another quick question here from the chat. It looks like the question is that a lot of people are frustrated by the algorithms that are used during the online application process. do you have any workarounds or tips to make it through this system when so often companies are using algorithms to do the first round of reviews for applications?
Yeah, I think, I think that this is something that you really want to balance. I don't know, for some reason I think I'm frozen, but if you can hear me, I think you really want to balance your pandering to computers to really making direct and personal outreach in your resume. The goal, again, of the resume is a forward-looking document as to why you are the best fit for the position that they have to offer. And I think that means that you need to use the language that is going to put you in the best light. That being said, I would pick two or three key phrases out of the job description to implement in your resume directly, in case it is a strictly digital review process.
Okay.
I would also say that I think it's okay to provide a cover letter in addition to your resume, even if they're not asking for one. I think it gives the interviewees a better understanding of who you may be, and you may be able to stand out a little bit more if they were to hopefully read it.
Very good advice. Thank you. Good thought. All right. I just want to make sure that there aren't any other questions here before we wrap up. Thank you again so much for your time and your expertise and sharing it with our members today. I think that this is going to be something that we continue the conversation. If anyone is able and interested to join us for Lockdown Lowdown, it's an informal conversation with planners in Illinois. So hopefully we can all continue this conversation. I know that there are a lot of anxieties and hesitations with developing our careers. So I'm looking forward to supporting each other and continuing on this path. So I think that is, oh, I will mention this will be on YouTube. If you wanted to check it out later, we will have that available on YouTube for any follow-up questions, or feel free to send us an email at APA Illinois if there are questions that you didn't get answered today, and we can follow up with the speakers as well. So with that, I will say thank you again so much for your time, and we hope you all enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.